Loved it. You're listening to BBC Radio London with Tim Arthur and Harriet Scott.
So, now we are talking to the author of a new book called Surviving AI, The Promise and Peril of Artificial Intelligence. And its author, Callum Chase, joins us today. Callum, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Good morning.
So, the book looks at whether or not artificial intelligence will be perilous for us, as some people I know, like Stephen Hawking and Bill Gates, have been making quite startling pronouncements that actually we need to be very aware of artificial intelligence and what it might do for us in a kind of dystopian Terminator-style way. Or, I think, as some of the things you say in your book is, actually this could be the greatest part of evolution for humanity.
That's right. In fact, the truth is both sides are right. And in fact, Hawking, Musk and Gates and the others have been saying this could either be the best thing or the worst thing ever to happen to us in a whole lot of ways. And I think that's true. AI is an incredibly powerful technology. And to come up with a rather startling observation, it might make us immortal.
Yes, now, yeah, that is quite... I tell you what, let's go back and just for people who don't know what AI or artificial intelligence is, should we describe that and then go on to how we might all live forever? Because if that happens... That's going to be great. well, let's see.
If we're around to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. But for people who don't know, what is artificial intelligence?
So artificial intelligence is very simply any intelligence, which is a rather hard word to define, but any intelligence which has not organically grown on its own. It's been created, and in this case, by us. Obviously, it could be an alien intelligence, wouldn't be artificial either. So it's a machine intelligence. As I say, intelligence is a tricky word to define, but if you just think of it as being the ability to solve problems in a wide range of environments. So an example of AI at the moment, the one that everybody comes across every day, is Google Search. Google Search is the application of a phenomenal amount of AI, and it's getting better daily. Your smartphones are full of AI. The Netflix and Amazon recommendation systems, they're examples of AI. So we have it all around at the moment. The thing about it is that it's becoming more and more powerful very fast. It's growing at an exponential rate. And I could talk about exponentials. That's an important concept to grasp. Within our lifetimes, within our kids' lifetimes, it's going to produce some remarkable effects. And that's why people are saying it could either be really good or really, really bad.
So for people like me, I understood it to mean, like in a kind of, again, because most of my things are based on sci-fi films that I watched in the 80s. So Terminator style, there's this concept that computers almost become conscious. They start thinking. And therefore, once they start thinking, potentially it's out of our control.
Yeah, once computers, if they do, we don't know for sure they will.
Yeah.
We don't know it's possible, but there seems no reason why they won't, as long as they keep improving the way they're going. Once machines become fully able to do everything we can, and they get to what's called artificial general intelligence, we then become the second smartest species on the planet. And that's, as the chimpanzees know, that's a rather vulnerable place to be. The Terminator scenario isn't really the threat. It's not impossible that an AI could wake up one day and decide, oh, I don't like you humans, you're a bit of a bad lot, I'm going to wipe you out. It might think that, actually, to think, sooner or later you're going to try and turn my switch off and I'm not going to let you do that, so you'll have to go. But it's more likely that an AI would damage us because it would simply want to use some of the resources that we need for different purposes, and it wouldn't think we were important enough to get in the way. We have quite specific requirements of this planet. We really don't want anybody mucking around with the gravity on it or the composition of the atmosphere. And an AI might say, well, actually, for my purposes, which are colonizing a galaxy or whatever it wants to do, solve pi to the trillionth number, I want a lot more of the material in this planet to become computronium. I want to make a giant computer out of it all. And you guys are getting in the way. I don't hate you. I don't love you. I've just got better uses for the atoms that you're using.
So it sounds so sort of fantastic. It sounds, to me, my brain can't jump there, that I would even believe that we can create a computer that would think independently.
Yeah. So a good way to get your head around that is to think in terms of exponential growth. I mentioned this before. If you walk 30 steps in a normal way, one step after the other, you'll go 30 metres more or less. If you could walk 30 exponential steps, so your first step is 1 metre, your second step is 2 metres, your third is 4, and so on, you'd get to the moon. In fact, you wouldn't. You'd get to the moon on the 29th step, and your 30th step would bring you all the way back. That is the power of exponential growth. Now, computers, thanks to Moore's law, are improving at an exponential rate. Now, if you think about what the computers that we had 10 years ago were like, before iPhones came along, they were really, really clunky, really slow. Now they're pretty powerful. An iPhone has a great deal more power than NASA had when it sent Neil Armstrong to the moon.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So in 10 years' time, again, the progress we've seen in the past because of this exponential growth will seem very, very tame. When you're on an exponential curve, wherever you are on it, the past is flat and the future is vertical. So in 10 years' time and in 20 years' time, computers are going to be able to do amazing things.
And actually, so with that kind of exponential growth, does it make it almost impossible for us to be able to predict what computers will be able to do in 10 years' time?
It does. It does. It really does. Not only hard to predict what they're going to be like, but hard to manage their growth, hard to manage their improvement, and crucially, hard to make sure that they're safe. And frankly, the reason why I wrote this book is that there is a debate going on about how you make future computers safe, but I don't think enough people are engaged in that debate. I think we all, as humans, we all need to be aware of the huge changes that are coming, because, you know, as we said, it could either be great or it could be terrible, and it's up to us to make sure that it's great.
And I mean, I grew up reading Isaac Asimov with the iRobot books, which had kind of rules of robotics. And I think, is it rule 1 was, I can't remember if it was rule 1 or rule 2, which said they'll never do harm to humans. Was sort of hardwired into robots as a safety mechanism.
Yeah.
Is that just totally fictional, or is there anybody doing that now to computer systems to say, right, that's your primary thing, you'll never harm humans?
Yeah, Asimov's 3 laws of robotics are entirely fictional, and he never intended them to be a sensible prescription for how to manage robots and AI in the future. He came up with that framework as a device to create jeopardy in his novels, because they always go wrong. Those rules always go wrong. In fact, it's really tricky. As I say, you know, how do you give a robot a set of instructions for how not to harm humans? What is harm to humans? If you really want to avoid harming humans, you put us all in coffins, feed us intravenously, and don't let us cross the road. We wouldn't like that very much. We don't agree as humans between ourselves and even within ourselves what a moral code should be. So how do you give one to an AI? There are people working on that problem. There are a lot of very smart people working on that problem, but we need more working on it.
So in the book, what do you think we can look forward to in the future? What do you think, on an optimistic level, what do you think we can look forward to, and what are the ways that we navigate towards that?
So in the near term, we can look forward to Siri becoming sensible and usable. At the moment, Siri is a bit of a joke. Surprisingly good at times.
I'm too shy to talk to Siri. I've turned it off on my phone. I find it too odd. I'm not an early adopter.
And if people don't know, we should say, if people don't know what Siri is, Siri is the ability on this is particularly on the Mac systems, isn't it? Siri, I think it is,
it's
where you
iPhones,
can iPhones, where you can talk to your
There are
smartphone.
other tablets available,
and other kind of Siri-like systems. It's your ability to actually just speak into the phone, rather than have to type it and ask it any question. Really,
that's the it's a virtual assistant.
I switched mine off. I don't know what. I just don't. I find it odd.
It's not yet at the point where it's really useful or always reliably useful. But I think within 5, certainly 10, probably 5 years, you're going to find you can have a conversation with Siri.
Yes.
And it will be immensely useful, and so you will get over that embarrassment about it.
So, at the moment, people just try and ask it silly questions, don't they?
Yeah, it's Google, it's Siri spoofing at the moment. You ask it, you know, should I buy an Android phone, and things like that, and they plug in sort of funny replies back. But as I say, in 5 years, certainly within 10, you'll find that will become extremely useful, and you'll use it all the time. Self-driving cars are going to be enormously useful. At the moment, we kill 1.2 million people around the world with cars. We are sending humans to do a machine's job. Self-driving cars do not kill people, so that's going to be a big improvement. A bit further ahead...
You obviously, the conviction with which you say it, you obviously believe that.
I absolutely believe that.
Surely a human can see more, judge more, make decisions?
No, sorry, I'm afraid not, no. I mean, Google's self-driving cars have driven over 1 million miles now in California, and they haven't caused a single accident. They've been in accidents because humans have rear-ended them, but they haven't caused a single accident. I don't know many humans who would be able to drive 1 million miles without ever causing a single accident.
I was talking to somebody recently about that, and I was saying, I think it absolutely is the future, self-driving cars. And they said, well, we wouldn't trust it, and we couldn't get the technology, you know, to be that advanced to do that. And then I kind of went, well, we just landed a satellite on a meteor, like how many billions of miles away? If we can get something to land within a matter of feet that far away, surely we can get something that can monitor how the distance between a car in front of us, behind us, slow it down, run it all as one big system.
We're already doing it. It is happening on the streets in California at the moment. It's not there yet. There are some situations it can't cope with. It's not very good at snow. Doesn't have much of that in California. It's not very good at telling the difference between a policeman trying to flag it down and a cyclist waving. But they are solving those problems quite quickly. And certainly within 20 years, most cars on the road will be self-driving. It will probably be illegal to drive a car on a normal road because we're too dangerous as humans.
Do you think within 20 years?
20, 25 years, definitely.
It's incredible.
Yeah, I think so.
You think as well what that could do for the environment? If cars had to then drive at the optimum speed to keep their fuel consumption at an optimum level, that's why I get really excited about the future. The actual things that we could do, that we could control, it's just that thing that whether or not humans will like that control being taken off them. And that, for me, is the only argument when it comes to whether or not we will all have, be forced to be in cars. That is whether or not we will have the ability to see the greater good and give up what some people consider their freedoms. People love driving cars. Cars is really interesting because people love driving cars.
I like driving my car, but I think we'll have racetracks and parks where we're allowed to drive.
We'll
as
do
humans.
that. We'll all have hoverboards, just like in Back to the Future. Were you interested in that this week? That was the date, wasn't it? That we arrived in the future and to see what people had got right.
And people always say, "Hey, dude, where's my hoverboard?" You know, they promised me a hoverboard. They promised us flying cars. Well, actually, we got omniscience instead. You know, with thanks to Google search, you want to know a piece of information, you just tap it into your phone, and there it is. 20 years ago, that was inconceivable.
Yeah.
Yes, even in science fiction, that was inconceivable. No, there was no kind of handheld computer that would tell you any piece of information you ever wanted.
Yeah.
And so are there things that you think we should be worried about then? What do you think we should be worried about, and how will the human race avoid any mistakes?
Yeah. So I think there's two big things that we need to be concerned about, and they're both in the sort of medium or the long term, but we need to start thinking about them because they're coming at us fast. The first one, I call it the economic singularity, and that is technological unemployment. People are talking about robots, AIs replacing all of our jobs, even journalists, I'm afraid. There are companies that write articles about sports and finance particularly. And I do think that in 30, 40 years, will not work, will not be able to, not work. They won't have jobs. We'll always do things. We'll always do things that we'll consider work, but we won't have paid jobs because robots and AIs will be able to do everything we can do better.
How are we going to make any money?
Well,
how are we going to keep ourselves in cups of tea?
Exactly. How are we going to keep ourselves alive, and how are we going to avoid all of the wealth gravitating towards the people who own the AIs? We could have a world where Larry Page owns everything, and the rest of us just live on handouts from Larry Page. That's the thing we have to worry about for the sort of medium term. And as I say, I call that the economic singularity. We're probably going to need a new economic system. We're going to have to probably evolve into something beyond capitalism. So that's the first one.
There you go, Jeremy Corbyn. You see, that's where he's the.
Well, I don't know. Except he wants a steel industry, doesn't he? He wants old school manufacturing to give people jobs. If computers, and robots can actually do all of that work, then nobody's got a job in that old sense. We'd have to find a whole new economy and a whole new purpose for our life. Because the other thing is, we've evolved as humans, and a lot of our purpose in life is to work. We fill our time with work. Yes. It's one of the things that gives us meaning, it gives us status, it gives us position, and it gives us finance. Actually, if that's taken away, or it's not replaced by something else, that's where I think it'll have the most stunning effect.
It's huge, because we won't know. Everything we do, we're putting our children through school. Everything we tell them, is one day you're going to have to support yourself, get a job, and this is how we organise our day. I mean, it's very it frees you up, but I find that quite terrifying as well. I think I like a bit of structure. Yeah.
And also there's that idea, because I was thinking about it last night, thinking through it, going, well, maybe what happened is humans will just go into service industry. They will want human, face-to-face human interaction. And then I realised when I land at JFK Airport in New York, a hologram greets me now. And this hologram greets me and it says, hello, welcome to JFK. It's really nice to see you. And you can walk around it and it looks like a 3D person. Really? And at the moment, it just has a set amount of things that it says. It's like a film, really.
Yeah.
But of course, if what we're saying about Siri is right, or intelligence, there's no reason why that interaction could look like a person, and I could ask it any question I like. And weird, actually, the great thing is, because it would be joined up to the web, I could literally ask it any question, as opposed to me asking a person going, what's the best way for me to get from here to so-and-so? And then either having to Google it, presumably that computer could just then tell me the answers I needed.
Yeah, that hologram's brain will be in the cloud. It'll have access to all the information. I think you're right. I think services are not immune to automation. It's all going to be automated. I don't think the lack of meaning is going to be our big problem. We will find interesting things to do. It will demoralise some people.
I'll go lie on a beach. It sounds great, actually, thinking about it.
Yeah, you can lie on the beach. You can socialise. You can play sport. You can read. You can write. You can, create art. We all do things knowing that somebody else does them better than us. And the fact that we know that there's an AI somewhere which does every single thing we can do better than us.
We'll lobotomise ourselves.
Well, that's the threat. There's the movie Wall-E, which I like. I do tend to, like you, I tend to think in terms of science fiction movies. I've watched too many. Wall-E, great Disney movie where the humans have gotten fat and happy and they live on a spaceship and they're just attended by robots. They don't do anything and they've got very lazy. And it kind of gone into a bad decline. That is a possible scenario. That's one of the things we need to.
It's the Lotus Eater thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
you go to an island where people just are happy all the time, or rather not happy, but there's no struggle. It's that kind of idea, isn't there? That and we'll just go back just quickly because I find it fascinating. We're just running out of some time, so go back to the immortality bit. By the way, how would that work?
So we know roughly, in broad terms, we know what it is that kills us. We don't know all the mechanisms for why and how we age and how we die, but we know, broadly speaking, the sorts of damage that goes on in our cells. And with sufficiently advanced technology, and some of these are being scoped out already, you can reverse the damage that happens in your cells, and then you just don't get any older. So it's quite possible, not certain, not at all certain, but it's quite possible. I have a 14-year-old, and it's quite possible my 14-year-old is a member of the first generation that will not need to die. Death will become optional. The other way that we could become immortal is by uploading into computers. Now, this does sound really far out, but I again believe that this is entirely possible in some decades ahead, maybe 60, maybe 70 decades ahead. We merge with the artificial intelligence. And that way, we don't become demoralized by becoming the second smartest species in the planet. We become part of the first smartest species in the planet. And that is our really glorious future.
That's the Borg, though, isn't it?
Well,
isn't that the Borg from Star Trek?
The Borg in Star Trek is portrayed as evil.
Yeah.
There's no reason why a collective intelligence needs to be evil. But actually, also, there's no reason why we have to be a collective intelligence. We might become a hive mind, or we might all stay separate within a giant computer. We don't know. There's an awful lot we don't know.
I mean, maybe my mind is just imagining this as too literal, like artificial intelligence, taking the form of a human. Would you say? Could you say that they would, they'd have relationships with each other? Do you know that you could have, members of a family?
I think they will have.
Well, I know I'm not talking about reproducing, obviously, but like just
no, but
partnerships.
Why not? I think we will have relationships, and I think they'll be even richer, and I think we won't make such a mess of them.
Or like our relationships, there's a phenomenal film.
Because you can just turn them off.
Yeah.
You can turn them off, or you can tweak them. You can say, look, that last thing I said to you, can we agree to forget that? You just rewind it.
Oh, that'd be perfect.
There's a phenomenal film, if people want to watch it, called Her. Did you see the film Her? Which is a brilliant movie, if people didn't see it, which is about a person who ends up having a relationship with Siri, Siri effectively. Yeah. And Siri can just give them everything they want, just reassures them.
He falls
totally in love with Siri.
Do you know Microsoft has a version of Siri which is only available in China, and apparently a quarter of the people who use this system have told it that they're in love with it. We're heading there.
Absolutely.
This
fantastic.
is fascinating.
Absolutely brilliant. Guys, give us a shout if you're listening to this and you have an opinion on whether or not you think our glorious future will come through technology, or whether actually this kind of image of us joining with computers or computers becoming conscious you find really frightening. You can give us a shout, 020 722 42000. Callum, thank you so much for joining us. It's Callum Chase, and the book is called Surviving AI, The Promise and Peril of Artificial Intelligence. Absolutely fascinating. Thanks so much for coming in.
You're very welcome.